So I've been wanting to do this review for quite a while now, actually several years at this point. I'm finally in a position to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, Penhaligon's Halfeti Cedar. Hey, welcome back to Real Scent Review, guys. Oh, I cannot wait to do this review with you guys. One of my favorite perfumes of all time, Penhaligon's Halfeti Cedar. For the longest time, I only had a couple of small vials, a couple of samples of this one. Now that I finally have a full bottle, I want to do the full review because not only is the scent spectacular, but I'm also a huge fan of the presentation. So now that I'm in a position to be able to present you guys the full prez, I'm gonna do it. This review has me really pumped up, and I know a lot of you perfume fanatics are also going to love this one. So this Halfeti Cedar, along with the original Halfeti and Halfeti Leather, are part of the Trade Roots collection from Penhaligon. This line draws great inspiration from spices and other exotic materials that used to be imported from the Orient to Great Britain. So we have other members of the same collection, such as Legacy of Petra, we have Cairo, Constantinople, and some other ones as well. Again, mostly inspired by spices and exotic materials from the Orient. Now, Halfeti itself is named after the town of Halfeti in Turkey, which is famous for its cultivation of black rose. So anyway, the original Halfeti had a note of black rose. I'm happy to announce, though, that Halfeti Cedar does not contain that note. I'm not really a fan of rose notes, at least the way it's presented in a lot of perfumery out there. Anyway, the nose behind this one is Christian Provenzano. He is a wonderful perfumer. He does a lot of work for Penhaligon's. Yeah, so I'm going to get this review started. So you can see the bottle that I've been holding in my hand this whole time. It looks like maybe a dark green or dark brown or almost black bottle. It is transparent, but it's definitely got a tint to it, a heavy tint to it. And we've got the Penhaligon's Halfeti Cedar logo on the front. We have this beautiful cap that slides off. It does have a little bit of friction to it. It has a little ridge here that, enables the cap to stick on tightly. Still, my motto is never pick up a bottle by its cap. No exception here, but just so you can see here, it looks like the cap is wrapped in a golden string, and on the top of the cap we have a transparent sphere. And on the bottom we have the usual information. My batch code is 234311. Moving on to the box here, wonderful black rectangular cube. This is an incredibly sleek looking presentation. I really like this. Most of the other members of the Trade Roots collection also have a very similar box. The differences being, the names and the color scheme of the box. I really enjoy this one though. The golden label against the black backdrop, the piano sleek black backdrop. I think this is absolutely stunning. The Penhaligon's name on top, the ingredient list on the bottom, and the top comes off. And the bottom of the box is lined with paper, cardboard maybe, and there is a place to hold the bottle steady so it doesn't move around inside. It's a very firm box here. You can hear that. I love that sound. Anyway, now that we have the presentation, let's get the actual scent review underway. So what do I get in this scent? In the top, I get a lot of rum, cardamom, and peach. In the mid, I get cinnamon and apricot. And in the dry down, cedar, vanilla, and immortelle. So in the opening, I do get a sharp hit of rum right off the bat, but it does not last, don't worry. But yeah, upon initial spray here, definitely some rum. I get a little bit of that vanilla spice, also a little bit of woodiness coming from that rum, and also the slightly boozy characteristic, obviously, coming from the rum. Very nice, but for the first 5 seconds, it is quite boozy. So you might want to spray this and hold it away from your face, and then after a few seconds come in for the initial sniff. Because after a few seconds, that alcoholic sharpness really dies down, and we get a big dose of cardamom. So the cardamom is going to give this opening here pepperiness. It's a little bit cooling. It's a little bit hot at the same time. and of course cardamom's characteristic just spice on top of all of that. Wonderful, wonderful mixture between that and the rum in the opening here. Also, I get some peach. The peach in the opening here is gonna give it, yeah, just a minimally fruity characteristic here. It's not overly fruity, it's not jammy, it's not even that sweet, I wouldn't say. And also, peach being a stone fruit, I also feel like there's some sort of like mineralic stone accord going on here in the opening. Sometimes peach can kind of give off that mineralic stony characteristic. I feel like that's what I'm getting here in the beginning. In the dry down, I get some cinnamon, so it's going to be a little bit dusty, earthy, dry, somewhat sweet spice. And that cinnamon is going to be paired with some apricot. And again, it's a stone fruit. So again, I feel like I'm getting even more of that mineralic characteristic here. The apricot is giving this like a very, I don't know, a dry fruitiness. And yeah, I also detect a little bit of, you know, something along the lines of like osmanthus. Osmanthus, apricot smell very similar to me. And I feel like I am getting a decent amount of that apricot in the middle here. Very interesting stuff. And in the dry down, we get a lot of cedar. So the cedar, you know, it doesn't start out very aromatic and dry. At the beginning, it smells like a freshly cut cedar tree, but then the cedar does start to dry down as the fragrance life progresses. As the fragrance dies down, the cedar does become more dry, becomes more aromatic. And cedar on my skin almost always goes a little bit smoky, a little bit incensey, and this fragrance is no exception. I am getting a smokiness from this one, and I'm sure it's coming from the cedar. The cedar very present in the dry down here. I also get a dusting of vanilla. It's a little bit of a dusty, maybe ambery characteristic coming from that vanilla, but like the vanilla is barely there. It is not an overpowering, sweet, cloying vanilla at all. And then I do get a lot of immortelle as well. The immortelle is going to give it a spicy, honeyed characteristic, almost reminiscent, you know, off in the distance, maybe I can get some glimmer of something like maple syrup, for example. It's slightly spicy, slightly honeyed. Maple syrup is kind of what comes to my mind. It is not syrupy, it just reminds me of the smell of maple syrup in the background. It's not a cloyingly sweet fragrance at all to my nose. So something very interesting about this fragrance here is that despite the fact that to my nose, it has two different types of fruits, the apricot and the peach, it does not go overly fruity at all. Like, guys, if you're sitting there thinking like, oh, this is a super fruity smelling fragrance, it's gonna smell feminine and juvenile, I assure you it does not. I feel like the fruits in this are lending it more of a mineralic, kind of rocky characteristic with the light dusting of the fruitiness itself on top of that. But it's like the rocky mineralic accords are overwhelming the actual fruitiness of the fruit, if that makes any sense. And on top of that, the cedar in the dry down of this is very prominent. It's a very wood heavy fragrance. I think it just smells absolutely classy. This is a spectacular fragrance. It is gentlemanly to the max. It is refined. Oh, I love this one. So I always do this. I always get ahead of myself. I always go off on a tangent when I'm describing notes. I can't help it. I love to do it. It's a hobby of mine. So if I could just summarize this scent very simply, it's a boozy, spicy, fruity, woody fragrance. But keep in mind what I mentioned there about the fruits. This is not a sweet, jammy, feminine, juvenile type of fruit at all. So as always, as a fragrance enthusiast, whenever I smell a fragrance out there, I always try to come up with comparisons in my mind. If I smell one scent, I always try to think like, does this smell like another fragrance to me? And Halfeti Cedar here is no exception. So I do get some strong reminders of things like Chopard's Oud Malaki, Costume National, also there's one by Nishane, Papilefico by Nishane. I've done a full review on that one, as well as the Oud Malaki. Yeah, strong similarities between the three, yet they're different. This one here, Halfeti Cedar, is definitely going to be the woodiest out of those that I've just mentioned. But all in all, like if you've smelled any one of those I've just mentioned, Halfeti Cedar is not going to be like super mind-blowingly exotic or surprising to you. However, I gotta say, this one here is my favorite out of all of those that I've mentioned. Also, the performance on this one, nothing to sneeze at, no pun intended. While it might not be quite beast mode, definitely not the strongest performer I've ever come across, it has more than respectable performance, which a lot of times I've heard some reviewers say that this doesn't have like great performance. I do not concur. I find this has amazing performance. It projects decently well for over an hour, like a little bit less than an arm's length. It leaves a great sillage in the air, and the longevity, the total longevity is, you know, between 8 to 10 hours roughly. So like above average. There's absolutely no problem with the performance here. There's no other way to put this. It is a damn fine, classy, elegant experience when you wear this. This is something James Bond wears at the bar when he's eyeing up that woman as he's devising his plan to take down the bad guy. Like, I totally get that type of vibe when I smell this fragrance. Cunning, intelligent. Those are words that pop into my head when I smell this. Just pure class. One more thing I will mention is that this does smell quite different on a tester strip compared to skin. It's one of those fragrances. Do not judge this by how it smells on the tester. I find there are a lot of fragrances out there that really don't have much of a difference, at least on my skin, but this one here absolutely is one of those exceptions. So on the tester strip, I get a lot of fruits. Definitely a little bit of booze and definitely some wood. And it definitely seems sweeter on the tester strip. On skin, it doesn't. And I have some other people who can corroborate that. My girlfriend actually tried this on her skin. Same idea, a lot sweeter on the testing strip than on skin. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to address the elephant in the room here. Is this discontinued? Well, you know, I don't know. I messaged Penhaligons myself to ask if it's been discontinued. They have not answered me. I have heard other reviewers, I have heard people on internet fragrance forums, Fragrantica, saying that this has been discontinued, but I don't know. I have never been able to find some solid evidence on that. But what I can tell you with absolute certainty is this is no longer on Penhaligon's official website, but this is still for sale like all over the internet. I found like a lot of different websites where you can still get this. So for example, in North America, FragranceNet has this, Fragrance Buy has this, Joma Shop has this. In the European Union, El Corte Inglés has it. So like, if it has been discontinued, it is still widely available online. And also I have seen this at several different physical retail locations across Europe in the recent past. So yeah, make of that what you will. Although I will say that the price of this has gone up significantly in the past year or so. I remember looking at this online like about a year ago probably. It was right around 150 euros for 100 milliliters. So I don't know, there might be something to that discontinuation rumor, but as of right now, as of when I'm posting this video, it is still widely available. So keep that in mind. With that out of the way, I just want to say that this is an absolute treat of a fragrance. If you're a fragrance fan, man, get your hands on this if you haven't already, or at the very least try to sample it. This is a real experience. It is utter class. It is a fantastic fragrance, one of my favorites, and it's been an absolute blast sharing this one with you guys. Have you ever tried this? What are your opinions on this fragrance here? Please leave some comments below. I hope you've enjoyed this review, guys, and until next time, keep it real.